The Backrooms, a maze of mundanity, an oppressive emptiness. If you're not careful, you could no-clip out of reality and find yourself traversing the nearly endless halls bathed in fluorescent light. These liminal spaces could be understood as the physical manifestation of an unbearable loneliness. They are, by definition, places of transition, realms that hold nothing yet can reveal anything, each turn of the corner a potential new horror. It's difficult to define the lore of the Backrooms simply because, for those who have been there, no two experiences are the same. But the accounts from wanderers who have returned often share a common theme. The isolation of the Backrooms is sometimes broken by other living beings, entities that wander the empty halls, lurking just around the next turn, waiting. Should you inadvertently no-clip out of our reality and find yourself in the nearly endless manifest void of the Backrooms, you'll need to know what you're up against. Today, in an effort to help you survive as long as possible there, we'll be covering a few of the most common Backrooms entities. With any luck, dear wanderer, you'll find your way back to our reality and live to tell the tale. Most people who land in the Backrooms are there for several days. Thanks to the nearly constant flicker of the overhead lights, sleeping is nearly impossible. That is, unless you have a manta mask. Manta masks are the best sleep masks in any reality. Need to sleep in a brightly lit room? Manta masks block out 100% of the light from your surroundings, and with an extremely comfortable, form-fitting style that doesn't press into your sensitive eyelids. Listen, I always thought that sleep masks were a gimmick. The ones I knew about were flimsy, too tight, and at best were like putting a piece of paper over my eyes. This manta mask changed my mind completely. I live in an apartment with city lights that blast through the windows, so I'm not kidding when I say that I wear this every single night. I even keep it in my backpack so I can sneak naps at my day job. The eye covers are adjustable and super soft. They come in multiple styles like weighted, warming, aroma, silk, and even a pro version. Look, all I can say is this: never discount the power of a good night's sleep and how much total darkness helps with that. So how about you join the pro nap movement? Use code ThoughtPotato at checkout at mantasleep.com or click the link in the description. Now, as we begin our brief catalog of the entities of the Backrooms, keep in mind that much of what we know about these creatures has been pieced together from multiple accounts of those fortunate wanderers who have returned to our reality. These poor souls are forced to reconcile two realities, and the mind fails to fully comprehend all of what the Backrooms hold. Sometimes it helps to compare these entities with something we do understand. Such is the case with one of the first entities you may encounter, known only as... Though its name is helpful in understanding its method of locomotion, in reality, the HOUND is a humanoid creature, so called only for its proclivity to move in a crouching motion, on all fours. Their face is usually obscured by long black hair, a kind of blessing, as the most prominent feature of their gaunt faces is their enormous mouth, which displays multiple rows of razor-sharp teeth. Unfortunately, if you do catch a glimpse of these teeth, it's likely already too late. The HOUND's bodies may appear thin and frail, but they're packed with sinewy muscle, giving them a surprising amount of power, and if they notice you, they can cross huge distances extremely quickly. Fortunately, the HOUND's hunting reflex is relatively slow to trigger and can be avoided altogether through slow movements and maintaining direct eye contact. If you're lucky, even a nearby HOUND may leave you alone. Some of the best evidence we have of the HOUND's existence is in this video, taken in what appears to be level 0 of the Backrooms, though the precise location remains unconfirmed. Some reports have placed them on levels 1 through 4. The HOUND's origin has been the source of much speculation. It's possible that their sole method of creation is through attacking human victims and infecting them with the so-called HOUND virus. This virus is aggressive and in virtually 100% of cases will result in the transformation of its host into a HOUND. Beginning roughly 30 minutes after infection, this process is excruciatingly painful, with limbs adapting to a quadrupedal stance. Rounded human teeth are replaced with sharper equivalents, and there is a complete loss of the rational mind. The biological mechanisms that facilitate this transformation are unknown, but a supernatural component cannot be ruled out. There is no known cure. The second theory for the HOUND's creation is less violent. It says that they're hatched from eggs born in the howling abyss of... Most of what we know about the Hive comes from a single wanderer who inadvertently slipped between realities while traversing level 6. This vast chamber in which he found himself has since come to be known simply as the Hive. This wanderer described the Hive as a seemingly endless maze of caverns and caves, barely illuminated by a pale blue light that appears to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. A dense fog permeates the air, making it difficult to see for any great distance. but while the hive is desolate, it is not devoid of life. Fleshy tendrils wind their way along the walls and ceilings, and huge, pulsing orbs dot the landscapes in clusters. During his time in the hive, this wanderer observed several of these orbs erupt, giving birth to what appeared to be juvenile hounds. Yes, these orbs were eggs laid by some unknown entity, though whatever it is, it has been referred to as the High Queen. Upon further reflection, this wanderer believes that the caves and caverns so prevalent throughout the hive are actually tunnels to different levels of the backrooms. The implication, of course, is that the hive is a kind of nest, a hub from which many known entities are born before making their way to different levels of the backrooms. However, this kind of large-scale speculation is simply that, and no one knows for sure. But the birth of the hounds wasn't the only thing this wanderer witnessed. Other creatures burst from similar eggs in the hive, and if we are to take his account as truth, then there's at least one more thing we know for certain. This is also the birthplace of... Unlike the hounds, the term crawler is used for any creature affected by a species of fungus that only exists within the backrooms, at least for now. This fungus does have analogous properties to Opiocordyceps unilateralis, a family of fungi infamous in our reality for infecting insects, placing their minds under chemical control and forcing them to find a habitat ideal for the fungus before erupting from the insect's head in order to grow fully. Though little is known about the physiology of the backrooms fungus, its effects are well documented. Creatures infected by this fungus undergo 4 to 5 stages of infection, progressing from a general uncomfortable itchiness to the appearance of white spots on the skin before being entirely engulfed by that white substance. In non-human creatures, the final stage involves the complete loss of reasoning abilities. Victims will exhibit extreme aggression as the fungus takes control of their brain and nervous system. Nails and hair will begin to grow rapidly thanks to an increase in keratin production. The fungus can be spread to humans in one of 2 ways, through water containing the fungus or by direct contact with an affected creature. If confronted by a creature carrying the fungal infection, only 2 options are available: fight or flee. As to the biological mechanism by which this fungus takes control of its host, one theory states that if this backrooms fungus is similar to Opiocordyceps unilateralis, it likely influences its host's nervous system directly rather than taking direct control of their brain. Instead, movement and other body functions are hijacked by the fungus, while the brain remains aware, though no longer able to control the body. The good news for those people unfortunate enough to find themselves in the backrooms, not every entity is so aggressive. As you wander the endless hallways of level 0, for example, you may hear something kind of like the sloshing of a mop in a bucket. That's a sign to pay attention, dear wanderer, because you may be about to run into... At first, these amorphous blobs of flesh may seem innocuous as they slide slowly along the ceilings and walls of level 0. Most often, they are heard before they're seen. A curious wanderer may be tempted to search for the sloshing noise that they make. Eventually, the wanderer may narrow down the source of the sound as coming from behind a door off of one of the backroom's many hallways. Upon opening the door, they see it. The SPLAT seems to move towards an unknowable destination with a kind of mindless determination. But if you happen to come across one, don't let this fool you. Multiple small eyes move across its undulating body, sinking and resurfacing, like lily pads in a rapid current. These eyes aren't terribly perceptive, but they are sensitive to movement. If one of them happens to notice you, the SPLAT will move uncharacteristically fast, latching onto your neck and injecting a kind of poison. But this poison doesn't kill you, at least not directly. Instead, it causes severe hallucinations, which lead the SPLAT's victims to believe that the room they entered is actually another endless hallway. The victim will inadvertently trap themselves within this small room, cursed to wander, until starvation overtakes them. At that point, well, even the slow-moving SPLAT can take its time. To avoid reaching this unenviable fate, take great care when entering any room within the backrooms. Move slowly and protect your neck as much as possible. And if you hear the telltale sound of sloshing nearby, do not investigate. But SPLATs aren't the only entities within the backrooms that lure their victims to their inevitable doom. If you happen to see a balloon floating through the air, for example, blown by a non-existent wind, running is the only way to avoid being caught by... As you might have realized by now, dear wanderer, nothing in the backrooms is what it seems. In that reality, finding balloons, confetti, and other festive decorations is not a reason to celebrate. These are the lures of the partygoers, tall, bipedal entities with brightly colored, leathery skin. Most unsettling of all, though, are their faces, permanently fixed in a smile, yet somehow devoid of emotion, their expression perfectly reflecting their true natures. Indeed, any wanderer unwitting enough to pursue one of the partygoers' lures will quickly find themselves overtaken by one or more of these entities, which are invariably lurking nearby. If you are caught, there's nothing you can do. The partygoer will latch onto their victims with mouths embedded into the end of their arms, disturbingly similar to the feeding pattern of a lamprey. But the victim isn't killed. Instead, they will metamorphose into a partygoer themselves, their skin taking on a bright primary color, while the features of their face reorganize into the hideous parody of a smile that adorns all of their kind. The exact mechanisms of this transformation are not entirely known, but as with anything in this reality, supernatural catalysts cannot be ruled out. Unlike the entities we've seen so far, the partygoers are extremely intelligent, albeit hostile and aggressive. They can be found on multiple levels of the Backrooms, though it appears that they originate from the level Fun, a large room decorated with streamers, balloons, and other party supplies. This festive appearance serves to put their victims at ease, causing them to approach, only to be overtaken. It's theorized that this level is a self-contained room within level 188, but this room can also be accessed by no-clipping through level 1. If you do find yourself in an encounter with a partygoer, run as fast as you can. Though they are cunning and intelligent, partygoers are blessedly slow-moving and can easily be outpaced. Never follow the sound of laughter and never let yourself succumb to the allure of a Backrooms birthday party. But while the lure and ambush behavior of these entities is frightening, there's something even more terrible about a creature that pursues its prey with reckless ferocity. You may see it coming, but there's little hope of escape from an entity known simply as... Imagine, if you will, that you've no-clipped into the endless field that is level 10. A fog hangs low over the wheat plants, limiting your field of view to only a few feet in any direction. A distant rustling catches your attention. It seems to be drawing nearer, almost as if something large is moving through the field. Did it come from your left? No, behind you. You notice that the air carries a strong scent, something like burning meat. Suddenly, a fleshy sphere of limbs erupts from the fog to your right. It moves rapidly, arms and legs extending outward, clutching the soil and reaching toward you at the same time. It slows for only an instant before a single long arm reaches from deep within its mangled folds, reaching toward you with an incredible speed. Suddenly, it has you, and as it pulls you to itself, the limbs that make up its body part, revealing a cavernous mouth lined with rows of sharp teeth. Now, stop imagining. This illustration has gone far enough. Clumps, as they're called, are indeed little more than a mobile mound of limbs, human arms and legs impossibly intertwined. But although they seem ungainly, they're surprisingly fast and agile. As we've seen, they do stalk the open field of level 10 as well as most other levels throughout the Backrooms. Generally, they prefer to stay in tight corridors or hidden beneath plant matter. These entities are in a constant state of hunger, and their sole purpose seems to be finding wanderers and consuming them. After they've eaten, the clump will bury themselves in the ground, even on levels with hard flooring, and enter a dormant state, leaving only a single limb exposed to the surface. During this time, they are vulnerable to attack, so if you happen to see a lone arm or leg protruding from the ground, you have two options: leave it alone or go for a preemptive strike. If you do decide to kill the clump, whether preemptively or in self-defense, don't linger for long. New clumps are able to spontaneously generate from the remains of deceased ones. No one knows how this is possible, but one thing is for sure: they're born ready to strike. One day we may know more about the clump's behavior and their origins, both of which are no doubt fascinating. The best way to deal with these entities is to avoid them altogether. Listen carefully at all times for the sound of flesh hitting the floor as if there were multiple people running. If you're ever unfortunate enough to be stalked by one of these abominations, stay completely silent and always remain at least 8 feet away. But while knowledge of clump biology remains elusive, we at least have accurate descriptions of their morphology. Some entities, however, remain almost entirely draped in mystery. In fact, one entity is so little understood that we don't even know if it has a physical body. We only know it as... Found in the darkest corners of nearly every level of the Backrooms, the Smiler may be the first entity that you come across. All that is known of these creatures is that they possess 2 glowing white eyes and intimidating rows of sharp teeth that line a twisted smile. In the dark areas of the Backrooms, they seem to emerge from the blackness spontaneously, drawn like moths to any source of light that you may have. No one knows whether they have a physical body, like we might expect, or if they are simply what you see, a glowing face floating through the dark. Some speculate that their body is simply incomprehensible to our minds, a twisted alien thing of which we can understand only a portion: eyes and a mouth. Whatever the case, once they see a light source, their approach is slow, almost patient. As a result, they can be avoided if great care is taken in your retreat. If you see a smiler, never break eye contact. Move slowly backward, gradually increasing your speed until you are out of its sight. Alternatively, you could throw whatever light source you have, such as a flashlight, which will cause the smiler to divert its attention in that direction. Whatever you do though, do not panic. A panicked retreat will trigger a hunt from which there is no escape. Once engaged, smilers can move in the blink of an eye, taking down and consuming their victims with ease. Once they've eaten, they continue on their way, their glowing smile slowly fading into the darkness. As we've seen, we're only beginning to understand all of what the Backrooms hold, and there's no doubt that the entire catalog of our knowledge only begins to scratch the surface. Here's what we do know. The weight of your isolation is immense, and it takes a toll on even the strongest wanderers. The mind is under constant strain as it struggles to endure the unknowable terror that these liminal spaces elicit. But the spaces themselves are just the beginning. If you happen to run into other living beings there, well, you might wish that you were still alone. If you'd like to dive deeper into the realms of otherworldly creatures, be sure to check out this video. Also, a huge shout out to my patrons, it is much appreciated. As always, thanks so much for watching, and remember, you matter.